Welcome to the Health Science Coach Podcast. My name is Drew Garner. I am a health science and physical education teacher here at Turner High School. My objective is to provide information to students about different healthcare careers and explain how these professionals got to where they are in their careers. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's dig in.
All right, today we have the pleasure of meeting with Ryan Ellis. He's the owner of Ellis Endurance Labs in Oklahoma City. He is an endurance athlete and coach and a bike fit specialist. Welcome, Ryan. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing great. So me and Ryan met back in 2008 while we were doing Kansas Half Ironman. It was both of our first Half Ironman distance races. We get out of the water around the same time. First 7 miles, he passes me, I pass him, he passes me. And then we kind of looked at each other and said, let's just not do this anymore. And do you remember this?
I do remember this.
He said, what's your goal? I was like, I'm just trying to finish. He goes, me too. All right, well, let's do this. So kind of talked for the next 20, 30 miles and then kind of just been hanging out and talking about endurance athletes and endurance training ever since.
It's crazy that it was that long ago.
It is.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, and I did my last race in 2010 for triathlon wise, in 2012 for running with marathons, and it seems like forever ago. But getting back into it myself, just got another tri bike last winter, so I've been riding it for a while now. So things are getting back into it, I hope.
Yeah, about time.
It's always fun and hard when you have little kids to get the training in. So can you give us a little background and insight about being a small business owner of a bike fit company and an endurance athlete coach?
Yeah, I mean, this all kind of came together over the past couple of years, trying to piece together and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I still have my day job while I'm trying to build this business, which is something I highly recommend. I used to own businesses in the past, I guess about the time actually me and you met. I owned several other things like a UPS store and a laundromat and some real estate and things like that. Life changed, went back to just being an employee. And even today, I'm still just an employee. I work at the Better Business Bureau, taking care of basically think about the money side of the BBB.
Okay.
So I do that during the day, and then in the nights and weekends, I am trying to grow this business to someday hopefully be the full-time gig. And that's the plan and that's the goal. And but it's just learning every single day of how to get a little bit more efficient, a little bit more dollars to the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense as a small business owner. While still having your own day job, being able to do that as a supplemental income while you're trying to build it that's pretty time consuming.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours, but in all honesty, after doing it both ways, this is more time consuming as far as hours out of your life, but it's a lot less stressful. Somebody cancels or appointment falls through, or I don't get, somebody comes in and wants to buy a bike, and that's going to be $1,000 profit, and then they buy it online and bring it in for the bike fit, and that's $150. So it doesn't hurt as bad whenever I know I have a guaranteed paycheck coming in as I build this, and I can take time to let things change and develop, especially with the world that we're in right now. And so having that guaranteed paycheck, no matter what it is, even if it's a side, like a part-time job while you're building your business, I can't recommend it enough, just because it takes the overall stress off of you. And then if you have a family or a spouse, it just helps them be able to deal with the growing business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So on a day-to-day basis, like you said, on nights and weekends, you kind of said you're able to set your own schedule. Let's talk a little bit about the bike fitting shop first.
Mm-hmm.
What does a week in the life of Ellis Endurance Labs look like?
So I call it my big kid job. So my day job, I go to from 8 till about 3:30 or 4, depending on what appointment times start. Then I start bike fit appointments at usually 4, roughly give or take 30 minutes. Usually I'll have one appointment. They come in between 4 and 5, and that can take anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. The other day I had 3 appointments in one evening after work, but they were shorter appointments, like touch-up appointments or something like that. So they didn't take quite as long. But I do that Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday, I usually block out the morning to try to get in a ride myself. And then I'll come in usually after lunch and do 1 or 2 appointments on Saturday. And then Sunday I take off.
Yeah, that's a pretty good schedule there for being able to get that many bike fits in and being able to help that many people throughout the week. As far as the endurance coaching goes, you started that back in, I think, 2010. Is that correct?
Right around there, sometime in there, yeah.
Yeah, so 10 years in the industry of coaching athletes. What all goes into being a triathlon or endurance coach?
Yeah, I kind of focus more on like the triathlon and ultra running athletes. Somebody's like a road racer or a crit racer, that's not really my wheelhouse because that's not really the activities on the bike that I specialize in that I've done personally. So I refer that out to a couple other local coaches. So we kind of network together on that. But I do everything online. I used to do one-on-one like swim coaching and run technique and things like that, but I just clearly don't have time for that anymore. It's just not cost effective. But when I was trying to get things going, you know, $40, $50 here and there made all the world of difference. So
Right.
I don't have to do that anymore, thank goodness. And that's freed up a lot of time to be more efficient. But everything's online. I use Training Peaks for my platform, and I load the plan up for the athlete. We'll do a full Q&A before we get started, what their goals are, their history, their injury history, what kind of equipment they use, what kind of devices they use for tracking their performance, things like that. Then we'll set up their A race, and everything's focused on their A race. And I may load up a block, so it may be an 8-12 week block that I load, but it's just a template for me to have access to kind of keep them on track. But every single week I go through on Sunday and load their next week and review all their previous week to see what their numbers were, what they struggled with, what they did good. And then this next week, let's just say they have a vacation coming up or something with work and they need off on certain days. So it's fully customized to them and around their life instead of them fitting their life around the training plan that I create. So, and it depends on their goals. You know, are they just trying to finish their first full Ironman or their first 100-mile ultra run, or do they want to win the local sprint triathlon? So all their workouts and stuff are based on whatever their goals are.
Okay, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the technology with Garmin's and Whoop bands and Training Peaks here in a little bit. So you studied in college. You went to the university, or Oklahoma City University, and studied mass communications. And I believe you played golf there. Is that correct?
I did. That was my previous life. I was on the golf team, and that's what paid for school.
Okay. So yeah, that was kind of where I was going, was trying to figure out how you chose to go there and what kind of led you to wanting to study mass communications.
Well, to be honest, I went in as a religion major for 2 years and was going to be like a college minister. Was kind of the goal and thought at that time. And then when I got there, I realized that is not what I wanted to do with my life and absolutely hated the religion department for multiple reasons. And so at that point, I was about halfway through my sophomore year and I had no clue what I wanted to do. And in the mass comm class, I didn't have to take very many accounting classes. So
yeah,
I picked that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. So it worked out well because of the mass comm, and then I took a lot of advertising classes and marketing classes. So that kind of all, today it worked out, but at the time it was just to get a piece of paper and move on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Get on to move on to that job. And like you talked about, having a bunch of different businesses and running your couple different properties and stuff like that, you were able to utilize that degree. But now you're really tapping into the resources that you used and learned back then. So you got into tries in about 2008, like you said, did an Olympic, and then chose to do a half Ironman. How many halves have you done in fulls?
Goodness. Halves, I would say probably, oh gosh, I don't even know, 10 to 15. I've done 2 fulls. And then basically every other thing that you can think of, from 24-hour racing to mountain bike stage racing to we did a 24-hour run, Xterra off-road triathlons, like pretty much anything and everything that you can come up with, multiple day bike packing, everything. I feel like I need to try it if I'm going to talk to people about it and have a clue about coaching them through it. I need to at least have a clue what they're talking about and experience it myself. And I don't do well with just doing one thing all the time. So I kind of got to spice it up and keep it moving.
Yeah. So last spring, I believe it was, you came up to the Missouri area and did the Katy Trail ride.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what your goal for that race, or not even a race. You were originally trying to do the ride across Oklahoma. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. We were going to bike pack across Oklahoma, and we got rained out like 2 or 3 days before. And so we just pivoted to, hey, it didn't rain on the Katy Trail. Let's just go up and do that.
Yeah. I was trying to meet up with you for a day or a little bit of the time that you were doing that, and your plan was to ride out and ride back.
Dumb plan.
260 miles one way.
Right.
So let's talk about kind of how, with bike packing, how adaptations change while you're, during your event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. So that was our plan. We knew we had a couple of really big days early on to make it happen. It was me and a buddy of mine that went and did it. Neither one of us had been on the bike that long in one session. So the first day took us, we were we slept in my car because we got up there like at midnight, and then we started the next morning early, and we took off, and from start till we set up camp was about 14 hours, but we were on the bike about 10 and a half hours. And the Katy Trail is beautiful. It's amazing. It's dead flat, which in theory sounds amazing and sounds great. But then it's like being on the trainer for 10 and a half hours because you can never coast. You don't get to stand up. Like if you coast, you stop. Like, and plus your bike's packed down with all your food and your sleeping bag and your tent and all the things. So neither one of us had done anything quite like that. So the first day we did like 155 miles, and it was just that it was mentally harder than anything. The body felt okay, but I was able to put aero bars onto my gravel bike, which was huge because it gave me more positions to be able to move around and get more comfort. I did notice right before we left, I put some spacers in my aero bars to bring them up to make them a lot higher, which was the right move to get more comfort. It wasn't about being aero, it was just about comfort. My buddy did not have those, and he paid the price for that because his hands, after just being on them for 10 and a half hours, was miserable. The next day he had a little bit of knee pain, so we did a kind of an on the fly riding beside him bike fit, and tweaked his saddle height a tiny bit, and so he kind of kept the knee issues and knee demons away, but he was definitely feeling it a lot more in that area than I was, because his seat height was just a little bit off, and so we were able to tweak that because when we started it felt great, but he had never put in that many miles in that position, and so being off in his position actually was showing up really, really fast. When we made a small tweak by lowering his saddle a little bit, it really took a lot of pressure off the knee and made life a lot better for him and hopefully help keep an injury away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Being able to, I mean, as a bike fitter, sitting there watching him ride, and knowing what was wrong with him and being able to correct that during the event. What are some things that you can talk to about your clients and endurance athletes that, maybe if you're doing a half Ironman or you're doing a full Ironman or an ultra event and something doesn't go your way? Like I did a half Ironman. It was a lot hotter. I think I was with you. We went down to Denton, Texas.
Yep.
It was a lot hotter in May, I think it was, down there than it was in Kansas City. And so, 80, 87, 90 degrees down there, we were sitting at 50s and 60s. So I hadn't been out in the heat as much. So I had some issues on the run. What are some things that you can talk to athletes about making changes on the fly when they have that goal of, my goal was a sub 5 hour. It didn't happen because of the run. But that was my goal. So I had to change my plan on the fly kind of. What are some advice things you can give to athletes about that?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just controlling the controllables. And I talk to all my athletes before any race. So if you're from the north part of the country and you're going to go down and do a race in Texas or do Ironman Texas or do Cozumel or something like that, like if you're coming from a colder temperature, you need to do heat acclimatization. So you need to be doing stuff, your trainer rides in the house on the bike, maybe like the last hour not using the fan. It's going to be miserable. Or as soon as you get off the bike or as soon as you get off the treadmill, spending time in the sauna every single day, or at least 3 or 4 times a week for 30 minutes to try to get a little bit of that heat shock protein and get a little bit of that red blood cell count up, and getting the body and core temperature used to, and the sweating used to that hot, humid weather. Sometimes there's only so much you can do. Like I have an athlete right now, he's a local guy, but he's going to do a 70.3 in Southern California in December, but it's a spring-fed water source, so the temperature of the water is going to be around 60 degrees. Well, he has a pool at his house, so I'm like, okay, he's going to use a neoprene swim cap, and he's going to use earplugs to help keep the water out and keep the core temperature up a little bit. But man, guess what? We're putting a bungee on those legs, and you're doing at least one swim workout a week in your pool out in the backyard from now until then, and it's going to suck. But you got to get used to that shock of the water temperature when you get in it. I've got him taking cold showers a couple of times a week. So there's things that you can plan for and things that you can do, but even picking a race that sets up for you better, that suits your abilities, where you're coming from, things like that. Just planning the race in the event that you're going to go do ahead of time will help a lot. But if you have a goal of doing this really fun race somewhere, look at what it's going to be like and do everything that you can beforehand in your training to prepare for that event, to set your body up for it. And then, just preloading with your hydration the week of the event, not just like the night before. Doing things like that. It's just smart. There's lots of little things that you can do that come with experience or talking with other athletes who have done these kinds of things, that you can save yourself a lot of really miserable miles.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. By being, doing the prep work before absolutely helps with all of that. So we kind of talked a little bit about your love and passion for doing these type of events. What made you want to start doing the triathlons, going from a college golfer to doing half Ironmans, 24-hour runs, that kind of stuff?
I hated cardio. I hated it. So I loved going to the gym and doing weights, but I would never run. I hated everything about it. And so signed up for the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon. And I was like, if I sign up and I pay for it, then I have to train, I have to do it. So and there was a group of us that were going to do it, and blah, blah, blah. I was the only one that ended up showing up and doing it. And then, yeah, they all just donated their money and moved on. And so at this point, I realized that okay, running isn't so awful, but I was bored. Like I said earlier, I just can't do one thing all the time. And so I got bored with the running, even though it's probably my best out of the three. And then, so I went and bought a bike. And when I got on the bike, I just absolutely fell in love with it because you can go farther, you can see more things. Things move by faster, and it's just more fun. And so that's how when I was training for the marathon, I signed up for my Olympic triathlon. And of course, if you kind of have that in your body, it's like, okay, well, what's next? What's longer? What's harder? And then you realize when you get into this community, there's always somebody with a dumber idea or has done something dumber than you. And so that kind of keeps the momentum going, which pushes you to do something dumber than you've ever thought about. Because you cross that line and you're like, oh, there's a whole bunch of other idiots here that do the same thing. So what's the next thing? And so I think, and then your friends become in that circle, and you start coming up with dumb ideas to go, do this other race or this other event, or trying, to do an out and back on the Katy Trail in 4 days and stuff like that. And so it just snowballs and becomes your lifestyle.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was talking to a friend about the Goggins 4x4x48 and thought about it last year, and I think I'm going to try it this year. We'll see. I don't know. Yeah. Don't know how that'll go.
The buddy that I do the Triat stuff with did it last year during COVID. They did the 4x4x48.
That's pretty cool. I'll have to talk with him, get his advice from him about that. What do you just absolutely love about your job?
Man, I love seeing athletes change their lives. It's life changing. So on the coaching side of thing, you get to see someone do a goal that they never dreamed of. They didn't think it was possible. I had 2 athletes this past weekend doing their first full. One of them I got to witness. She was in Waco. That's where I was at this past weekend at the Ironman Waco. So watching her do her first full, she's a couple months pregnant. And it was super cool to watch her like check that bucket list and follow her posts, and her kids there and her husband there, like seeing the accomplishment in their lives is just so cool. My other athlete, she was at Ironman California, got rained out, and she's super bummed. But her sister lives in Oregon, and she's flying here in like 3 weeks, and they're going to do their own full here in Oklahoma City, just self-supported and doing it. So I'm going to go out and watch her and help her with that, because it's going to be, again, she's a mom. She's like a bucket list thing. So watching people achieve things that they never even understood or dreamed is super cool. Working with the bike fit athletes, I love that part, because people come in and they're like, they just assume that it should hurt. They assume that pain is associated with it. Like you should go numb when you ride a bike, and you should have tingly feet and not feel your hands, and then you can just see the switch goes on when they're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Oh, I can't. Oh, this is great. And that's life changing and a lot of times with the bike, it's more so like it helps almost change like part of their family and their life, because now they're going out and doing stuff with their kids, or they're getting more active and losing weight and becoming healthier and being able to play with their kids more, or they get to go on these trips with their friends and do all this fun, cool stuff, or every weekend that's their de-stressor to get out with the boys and put in some miles. And so seeing like it's a piece of life and not just like clocking in and clocking out kind of situation. It helps prepare and propel them forever, and help them with their fitness goals and their health, and just makes their life significantly better. It's so fun and cool to be on the sidelines and be a small piece of that journey for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you kind of talked about earlier, with that endurance community is such a big family. I know here in Kansas City, we have several different tri groups and coaches, and everybody's out supporting one another. And it's, like you're talking about, seeing them be able to check that bucket list is always something cool to do. Now, I mean, all of that is personally rewarding and helpful, but you work with a couple different charities and groups, Go Mitch Go, and like you said, TriDat, helping challenged athletes do triathlons. You want to speak a little bit about those two groups?
Yeah, so Go Mitch Go, I got affiliated with them. It was my neighbor, Mitchell, passed away of leukemia. He was 8 years old, and me and his dad became buds, and they did some basically like the team and training they were kind of plugged into the local team and training chapter. And I was a tri coach with team and training. And then when Mitchell passed away, me and John became really good buds, and he kind of broke off a little bit and kind of did his own thing. So one year we ended up taking 14 athletes to Ironman Arizona. So we had everything from experienced Ironman athletes to people that didn't even own a bike. And we trained them up and we got them to Ironman Arizona. And I only had one that didn't finish. He got hypothermia on the run, and they pulled him off the course. And it just like, it was so miserable. But they raised like $250,000, and that money went straight into a grant at MIT that was funding research directly. So all of that money went straight in. They've raised well over $1 million at this point. And all that money's been funneled straight into a grant to do cancer research, which has been super cool. And then TriDat is a really good buddy of mine. He does multi-sport stuff or running, whatever, with Bryce, who has cerebral palsy. And Bryce grew up with Ryan's with his son. They were friends all through school. Ryan did Kona as a charity spot a handful of years ago. When he crossed that line, he had the determination to take someone across the finish line at Kona that would never have that opportunity and ability. And so TriDat was born. And at this point, we've done 2 half Ironman, a couple other random races, a couple of half marathons. We did a full Ironman in Boulder and made the time cutoff 2 summers ago. And then Bryce has kind of stepped away recently and he's retired is what he calls it. We actually got into Kona this year. We should have done that a couple of weeks ago, and then it got delayed, and life's just changed a little bit. And so I think we're not going to get to go to Kona at this point. We got deferred to next year, so maybe a miracle happens and we end up in Kona. But this past week we did in Waco with Chris, who is out of Corpus Christi. We didn't know Chris. Chris has cerebral palsy as well. His guide was not able to make it because he got deployed. And so they sent out hey, can someone help? And Ryan stepped up. And so I'm Ryan's coach, so I coach him on all of his stuff. And then I'm his pit crew. So me and another guy are the pit crew. So we take care of either Bryce or Chris, and getting them in the kayak because he pulls them in the swim, getting him out of the water, putting him in his chair, getting him to transition, putting him on the bike in that chair. Then Ryan pulls him. And then when they come in, that cart detaches from the bike and we set it up as a stroller, and then Ryan pushes them on the run.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing stuff right there.
Awesome.
You know, being able to take somebody like that through a finish line of something that they would never be able to do. I definitely think you guys need to go to Kona.
Well, if we can get Bryce talked back into it and pull him out of retirement, then we'll be there.
Yeah, I think that's a bucket list in itself.
Yeah.
What misconceptions do you think there are out there about triathlon coaches or endurance coaches or bike fit?
On the coaching side of things, I would say go with someone who fits your style. So I don't fit every athlete, and every athlete doesn't fit me. So don't go with a coach that's like, oh, you can only talk to me like one phone call a month and 3 emails a month. Like, if you're paying them, they should service you. So make sure that your personalities match, their coaching styles match, because my coaching style doesn't work for all athletes and vice versa. And it's okay to fire your coach if it's not working, and that's okay. Because I fired athletes as a coach because they're not living up to their end of the bargain. So that relationship goes both directions. So find someone who's done the event, that lives that lifestyle, that's not just like I read a book and got a certification that they took online with an open book or whatever, that they truly have experience in what they are helping you with. And they're okay with saying, I don't know. Here's someone that's much more qualified than me. And they've built a network around them. So kind of look for those fringe things when you're trying to hire an endurance coach, because there's more to it than just giving you a training plan. It's race day strategy, it's nutrition strategy, it's hydration strategy. Are you doing soft tissue and mobility work? Like, all of that goes into it, and they should be knowledgeable in all those things. I'm not saying they should be an expert, but they should be knowledgeable. On the bike fit side of things, just because someone has been riding their bike and they ride behind you in a group ride and they tell you should raise and lower your seat, like, don't listen to them unless they have been doing it and they've talked to you. They know your body, like they know where you're strong, where you're mobile, where you're weak, where you're tight. They know injury history. They know your goals. They know that you've had 2 surgeries on that left knee, that your hip flexor is super tight on the right side. You have T-spine mobility problems. Like, all of those things go into your bike fit. So your buddy riding next to you in a group ride telling you, hey, your left knee's flaring out. You need to do this. Like, don't. Just go see someone who does it professionally. Go see someone who pay the money, because people buy these like $2, $3, $4, $10,000 bikes, and then they don't spend $150 or $300 to go get a bike fit, but they just spent $400 on a pair of shoes, right? Like, makes no sense. You should do a bike fit every 24 to 36 months, even if everything feels good, because your body changes and moves. And nothing about you is symmetrical. Nothing. Like, your feet aren't symmetrical. So, and the bike's perfectly symmetrical. So the bike should be adjusted underneath you, not you fitting to the bike. So it's preventative. You should never have numbness. You should never have like acute pain if the body's in good working order. So if any of that happens, you need to see a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just jump right into the 3 different types of bike fittings. We're going to skip around a little bit. Right behind you, you got your Guru bike fitter. Really, really cool piece of equipment right there. What are the 3 different types of bike fittings that you do, and what are like you talked about, doing the pre-testing to see if they are mobile, where they're lacking the mobility, what you need to adjust?
Yeah, so 3 different types, and basically it's kind of budget based for the most part. I just have a foundation fit where it's kind of the old school traditional, where we just put you up on the rack. Actually, I'll move the camera and you can see it. So so that's kind of a traditional fit where you just put your bike up. We use a goniometer, a plumb bob, those kinds of things. Takes about an hour-ish to kind of figure all the things out. And then back there is the Guru machine. It's basically a computerized bike. So it's super cool because as you ride, everything can move underneath you. Then we can save several different positions. Instead of like, I want to raise your seat, you have to get off, we put you back on. I can save your original position, so when we're done, you know what your original position felt like and what our new position feels like. And usually people go like, holy cow, like I can't believe I rode like this. This feels so much better. So they can see in real time like the changes that we make. And then we can save a couple of different positions, and it becomes like an eye doctor test. Like, do you like A or do you like B? And as we hit the button, it moves underneath them. Super cool. And then the technology fit is we use the Guru bike, and then have a motion capture system that runs through the computer. The camera reads them as they ride the bike, turns them into a stick figure, and measures all their joints. So it just gets a little bit more precise and a little bit more accurate. And then, so that's just the next level of accuracy per se.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The pre-screening I think is extremely important. And I think it's a piece that a lot of people miss. I know we've even talked about some screenings and stuff. And so I use part of that in my screen. So it takes about 10 minutes to 15 minutes off the bike, depending on what we need to explore. But it's just looking at what's tight, what's mobile, what's weak, what's strong. And then that way, because knowing if they have a tight hip flexor when they get on the bike and that knee flares out, well, okay, we need shorter cranks because the body, or that's a possibility, you know, like the knee flares out because of the hip flexor, not, you know, working around it. So we can give them mobility work and soft tissue work off the bike to basically help try to bring that in. And that's why I have like a weight rack and TRX and bands and stuff, because with an athlete, I would like to take them, have them show me what they're doing in the gym, and then give them some homework whenever they leave to help fix and make their body a little bit better on the bike.
Yeah, being able to fix and correct, being able to see them do the movements and being able to correct those movements right there in the gym or in your facility. Let's talk a little bit about some of your certifications that you have. You got 5 or 6 different kinds here sitting here. You got USAT, triathlon coaching, cycling coaching, strength and conditioning coaching, TPI certification, and an IOG certification as well. What do you use all those different certifications for?
The USA cycling coaching and the USA triathlon coaching was just to kind of get that business up and running and give a little bit of credibility to my name. To be honest with you, I didn't really learn much and they were kind of a waste of money. But to get the business going, I needed some credibility because I was a young athlete and a young coach. The TPI, Titleist Performance Institute, is a golf certification, but I can't recommend it enough for anybody that works with any athlete because they do it. It's all mobility and rotational based movements and screenings. And that goes across all sports. It doesn't matter if you're playing basketball, hockey, lacrosse, swimming, like running, all of it. They have tons of different levels and tons of different like paths that you can go. So I can't recommend Titleist Performance Institute enough for all people that want to get into anything athletic coaching involved or training. The IOG and the FIST certification are both bike fitting certifications. So FIST is basically triathlon fittings based. So Slow Twitch website that's out there. Dan is the one that basically created the very first triathlon bike and the very first fit system that's around triathlon. So it was went to his ranch and we did a weekend of things. And then the IOG is Ivan O'Gorman. It's who I went to and spent a week with before I opened up this to kind of get my brain back into the fit game. And he's got a studio out of Boulder, and he's the fitter for the USA Triathlon Olympic team, and then like Seth Coos and Lachlan Morton. So all these guys that you see in the Tour de France that live in Boulder, he does all their fittings. So he's a pretty smart dude.
Yeah, that's I would definitely agree with that. That's pretty cool to be able to, you know, get the same kind of education and background as those top elite fitters out there. Let's talk a little bit about technology. We've bounced around a little bit with it, but technology for athletes. We got Garmin training, we got Whoop watches, we have heart rate training, the watts. You had your kickers sitting over there for your bike trainer. And then you mentioned a second about training peaks and kind of how all that fits together as one.
Yeah, so I use Training Peaks for my athletes to put their workouts in and for them to load stuff in, and so I can see what they're doing. They can load their Garmin file, Wahoo file, whatever system they're using, and I can see basically how their heart rate went, what kind of power they were putting out, if they have a power meter on the bike, or if they're using a trainer, things like that. I prefer power and pace over heart rate. So pace on the run, power on the bike. It's just more accurate. It's more responsive, it's quicker feedback, things like that. And there's so many things that affect your heart rate numbers, from lack of sleep, dehydration, did you have an extra cup of coffee, are you pissed at your spouse, like did your employer just yell at you, like all these different things. Heart rate is kind of a secondary thing. I use it as things to like cross-reference, but I would rather use something else if possible. So watts on the bike are just so accurate. If you really truly care about getting better on the bike, that needs to be the first dollars that you spend as a power meter, and learning how to use it and train accordingly with it, because most people go too hard most of the time, and then they don't go hard enough when they should be going hard enough. And the same goes with pace on the run. So you set your zones, and you do that with doing some field testing to come up with where your zones are. And then you know what easy really is. You know what recovery really is. So that's how I like to use those devices during specific training and their race day efforts. And then for like the Whoop, I've used the Whoop for, gosh, like 5 years now, and you have all kinds of different wearables out there now. I use that a lot for just tracking sleep and looking at what affects your HRV, because HRV is clearly the most, in my opinion, the best way to track your recovery to this point that we know of, or that it's affordable anyways. And so whatever you can use to use HRV, I mean, you can use your heart rate strap and an app on your phone, but tracking that will give you a great idea of like your hydration, how much alcohol and affects your sleep. Does CBD work for you and give you better quality of sleep? Does certain nutrition things make you recover better or worse? So I'm a big believer in HRV and tracking that and seeing what it is for your true recovery score, because it's amazing what just travel will do to your recovery. You feel okay, but you're really not okay. And so when you go out and fail that workout, it's okay because you weren't set up to succeed in that workout to begin with, even though you felt okay, and vice versa. So I'm really big on the wearables when it comes to tracking HRV.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff, because even just traveling and not even trying to train, but just traveling in general, just you're not drinking as much water while you're going on a 6-hour flight or whatever your flight time is, and all that kind of stuff just messes with your system. What's something that you're most proud of accomplishing so far?
That's a tough one. Honestly, I would probably say the working with other athletes, getting Ryan and Bryce, helping being a small part of their puzzle to get them across the line in Ironman Boulder. We made it with about 30 minutes to spare for the time cutoff. And it was like, I've never cried and had goosebumps and seen so many people cry ever at an event. That was super cool. I've had several athletes across over the years, where one that sticks out to me a ton was one of my first athletes through Team in Training, getting her across the finish line at an Olympic triathlon at Cap Tex. And I walked the whole entire 10K with her, and she was the next to last finisher out of 3,000 people. And the emotion that came out of her and the life-changing moment it was for her and for her kid to watch her, like, she had never done anything athletic in her life, and she completed an Olympic triathlon. Like, that kind of stuff is the most rewarding and like by far the best stuff. It doesn't even come close to anything else.
Yeah. Do you have anything you regret not doing with your business?
No, I don't think with the business as of yet. I wish that I would have had a clue what direction, which always hindsight, and when you get older, you're like, oh man, I should have listened to all those old people back when I was young. But now that I'm the old guy, I get it. But I wish I would have taken more body-based, some sort of degree in college and continued that education post-college. I really wish I would have gone down like the PT route, or even just have that athletic trainer backgrounds through school, or just something in that world when I was young. It would have made a huge difference in my life now, but who knew? I didn't have a clue I would end up here. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. But just knowing that you were interested in it and seeing what else was out there while you had that availability. For professional development, I know that to keep your certifications with USAT and your other certifications, you have to do a certain amount of CEUs. What are some of the stuff that you like to see or like to go do as far as CEUs go?
Yeah, and that's part of why I don't have those two, my USA Cycling and my USAT anymore, because of the CEUs. Because I was like, I'm basically just paying them more money to do more of their CEUs to like it. It's a brilliant.
I get it.
For them, it's a brilliant business model. For the person paying, it's sometimes not the best. I really like that the going down different rabbit holes. So I've done stuff with rock tape, like learning that technique. I'm just getting a basic understanding of that. Going and doing, even if you're like triathlon, but you're a PT or something like that, go do a fit certification. So you learn when somebody comes into you and has a cycling injury, you have a clue about, oh, okay, you can kind of put pieces together. So I have done a lot of different continuing ed that has nothing to do with what I do here, but it's just kind of making my knowledge bigger and better. So this winter, if I can find a gap in the schedule, I want to do the mobility WOD, his certification that he has, that level 1, because, you know, if I can learn how to make an athlete move better and screen them a little bit better beforehand, that would make me a better bike fitter. And so I've done different screening certifications and stuff, just because that little bit of knowledge just really goes a long way, and you don't ever know when that's going to pop up. So I would say really diversify your skills and don't just stay in your lane with what you're doing.
Right. Absolutely. What are some of the industry trends as far as certifications or bike fitting or coaching that you're kind of seeing out there for endurance athletes?
There was a big push a handful of years ago about, less is more when it comes to endurance training. I think that works for some athletes. And then there was a push for you should be zone 2, the Maffetone method forever. That's what everybody should be. I think you need to pick the one that works for your body and your brain.
Right.
I could never do the Maffetone method because I would be bored like stiff. It would be miserable for me. I have some, I train more the other way and coach the other way, where we do intervals and then we lay endurance over the top of it. But some people, that breaks them. And so I think that's kind of the trends that I've seen. It's been very polarizing over the last handful of years, but it seems like the Maffetone method's kind of drifting off a tiny, tiny bit. But it works well for some people. But so find the method that works for you on that. And the bike fitting thing, it's something that Dan was preaching to me whenever I did my fifth certification, 10, 11 years ago, with shorter cranks. I see shorter cranks as the answer for so many problems. Almost every athlete under 6 foot tall on the bike has cranks that are too long for them. I would say probably 90% of them. The research is coming out more and more and more. You almost can't go too short when it comes to cranks. I wish more people would get on board with that. There's tons of benefits and very, very, very few negative side effects on it.
Interesting. That's pretty cool to be able to see that and see how it works for that athlete specifically when you do that. Kind of touched on it a second ago, career goals. Where do you want to see yourself 5-10 years down the road with your company?
Yeah, I want to be doing this full time. And what does that look like? I'm not 100% sure. I have some ideas and I'm trying to flush out. The industry changing so much during COVID has really, in the bike industry and supply chain and all that, has really changed the way that I'm going to be going over it the next handful of years. But clearly I want this to be my full-time gig. I do want to have some coaching athletes, but I would like to be able to keep that limited to like less than 10. And do the bike fitting side and performance side of things a lot more. How does that evolve? I'm not 100% sure. With outside of just the bike fitting piece of it, is there more performance piece to it as well, with performance testing? Maybe. Oklahoma City is kind of a little bit different when it comes to some of the bigger cities in this part of the country. So that's the parts of business that's intriguing and keeps it exciting and keeps you guessing and trying new things. But definitely in this space, in the endurance piece, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of goes with your map that you have back in your background. I know that on your social media channels, you always love posting people putting their pin in. What kind of made that happen?
Well, and I'm super excited. And I was actually talking last night because I get to put 2 new pins in this month. So next week I have someone coming from Crested Butte, and then during Thanksgiving week I have someone coming from Abilene. So super cool. I've gotten, I think, like 8 states now. And what really kicked it off is the motion capture technology that I have. Up until about a month ago, I was the only one in the United States that have it. It's out of Italy, and Celia Italia, it's their motion capture technology. And so that was part of the reason that I brought it in. There was a couple other reasons as well, but GCN did a video about it. And when they did that, people started looking, and I'm the only one in the United States that has it. And so people started traveling from all over the United States to come here. And I was like, what the heck? Why? And why are these people coming to Oklahoma City to get a bike fit? And I have people like fly in, stay the night, get the fit, fly out the next morning. I had one guy that flew in and flew out the same day. Like, it's crazy. I'm like, you have fitters in your town. Like, what are you doing? But, I've had people drive in from, from Georgia, from Tennessee, from Florida, from Southern Florida, or they're going across the country and they make Oklahoma City a pit stop to come get a fit. So it's super cool. But yeah, I love putting pins in the map.
That's awesome. That's a really cool story of how that kind of just developed.
Yeah.
With your business degree and now owning your own business, what's something you kind of touched about, maybe going down that route a little bit earlier, but what's something you wish you would have known, in high school or maybe early on in college that could help you with your career now?
It's about sales and it's about marketing. The task you'll figure out and you'll learn. Like, there's always certifications you can go do. There's always mentors that you can have, classes you can take. Like, if you're going down more of that professional size stuff like PT and things like that, like, you're going to learn that stuff in school or the things that you need to get going. But the continual development is massive, and finding people out there. So I reach out, I have a handful of fitters that are out there like that I have lined up to go spend time with them in their shop, but it's more to learn the business side of things. Like, why does somebody's hands go numb? Like, we can talk about that in a couple different strategies, but how do you operate day to day? How do you grow your business? What kind of marketing strategy do you have? How are you doing Instagram ads and things like that? Why are you doing this post on your Instagram feed? So those kinds of things I think are so much more important. How do you sell? When somebody comes in here, do you have the guts to tell them, yeah, you need this $300 seat? Because they do. You're helping them. You're not selling them.
Right.
You're not a slimy car salesman or shoe salesman, kind of like, you need all these things. They come in for $150 and they walk out $600 later, like, what just happened to me? Like, how do you care about people? How do you sell people in a caring way, in a helping them way, not just shoving stuff down their throat? So every single person needs to learn how to sell, and every single person needs to learn how to market and efficiently. And if you can do those two things, your business will grow. Even if you are working for an institution, you still need to know how to do that, because that's how you grow professionally. That's how you grow. If you want to be a business owner, it's not about the actual task that you're doing. It's all the pieces around it that, provide you the ability to do what you love. If you suck at selling and you want to try to open a bike fit studio, it's not going to work, and you're not going to be able to help people because you don't know how to make money. And so people really need to pay more attention to the business side than the task side.
Okay, so that kind of goes straight into my next three-part question is high school student, college undergrad, or grad student, and recent graduate. So maybe they are studied kinesiology, maybe they're an endurance athlete themselves, but they're wanting to get into some form of coaching, some form of training athletes, that kind of stuff. What do you see advice for a high school student?
Yeah, I would say talk to your coach, or it's so easy to find people on your phone, right? And find some different, there's Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts or whatever that you follow that you love for whatever reason. Okay, we'll send them a message and say, I have a guy that I absolutely love. He has a bike shop in Cincinnati. His shop is the most beautiful shop I've ever seen. He does fits. I love everything about what he does. So I just send him direct messages of like, hey, I want to come hang out with you. And finally he's like, man, so he called me and we talked for like an hour. He gave me so much great advice. So find the people that you love what they're doing, of whatever that is, and just reach out to them. It's so easy to do. It's just you're DMing somebody about whatever. You're trying to sell them. You need to sell yourself to a professional that you are intrigued by, or you're interested by what they're doing, or you like their facility or what they do, how they got there. Like, just ask questions. Most of the time they will help you, and they want to help you. They want to pay it back, or because somebody helped them. So I would just reach out to people.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So what kind of grad student, undergrad student, reaching out to them, maybe looking for job shadowing type roles or internships. What do you think would be beneficial for those?
I think I would say it's hard for me to kind of answer that one because I didn't do this traditional path with kind of what market you have here. But I would kind of say take that next step in going out and shadowing. If you like bikes, find a local bike fitter, go spend a day with them, go to the bike shop, talk to the guy that owns the bike shop. How did he get into the industry? I would say download and listen to every single podcast and or audible book, or find a book that intrigues you. But at that point, I would think I would really start honing the craft of selling and marketing and learning those pieces, because you're getting ready to come in. Because if you're going to go the traditional like clinician or something like that, you're getting ready to go into all the job interviews. You're getting ready to start doing all the internships. You better learn how to sell if you want that job, right? Because you're selling yourself. So I would really, really, really go down that path of just learning the business side of life and not just the task side of life.
Right. That's pretty good to be able to have that skill in your pocket. So with, you kind of talked about for a second, listening to podcasts. You have your own podcast. Can you talk a little bit about how that started and kind of came to fruition?
I do. So I had one, I don't know, a handful of years ago called Conquer Training, which is what my training business is called. And that was based on athletes, talking to them about the nuts and bolts of their training plan and fitness and those kinds of things. It was great. I don't know, probably ended up with like 5,000 or 6,000 downloads when it was all said and done. So it was awesome. I ran out of athletes to talk to and I got bored doing it. So I shut it down. And so this one is basically a marketing spin off of my bike shop. Because when people think of cycling in Oklahoma, I want my name to be in that conversation somehow, some way. I want to plug into it. I want to learn who all these influencers are. I want to learn what have they done? How did they get into the sport? So it was a marketing spinoff for my, to be completely honest with you, about why I started it. And then it's been so awesome because I'm just featuring Oklahoma athletes who tell their story of how they got to riding a bike, when did they start, all those kinds of things. And it's everything from race promoters to your top guys that have been pros and done races all over the United States. I had one girl who was a local, she was BMX UCI podium in BMX in South America. But I ride with Stacy all the time. I see her all the time. And I had no clue that she had that when she was a kid. So it's letting people tell their stories. And then we talk about, them giving advice, and we have a fun little Q&A session at the end and stuff like that. But it's really just featuring Oklahoma athletes and letting them tell their story of why they're awesome, and or promoting their event, or promoting their bike shop, or whatever it may be. So I did it as a marketing piece to my business, but also it's to help promote them as humans in our community.
Right. Absolutely. So besides podcasts and listening to different stuff about endurance, what would be a book that you could recommend to a high school or college student that's interested in endurance events or cycling specific?
So I knew this question was coming, so I had to get I hate reading. My reading comprehension is probably probably worse than both of your kids. So I think most of mine go back to business books, because I have like 120 books here on my Audible. So a couple of them that I would highly recommend: The 4-Hour Work Week. It's just learning about how to be efficient in life. So that's a life skill book. That's going to help you in your continuing in your studies as you go forward into your grad school and all that kinds of stuff, but also how to set up your life and make it more efficient. The other ones that I really, really, really liked, if you do want to create a business or you want to go down that rabbit hole, 0 to 1, absolutely amazing. It's Peter Thiel. He was part of numerous startups with like Twitter and all the things. So he's kind of a smart guy. The other ones that I had on here that I really, really recommend, where is it? Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
Everybody, no matter if you're an employee, a business owner, an athlete, whatever it is, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willing. You can't, everything is your fault. And you work backwards from there. And so that goes with everything in life. So it will make you a better human. So Extreme Ownership, Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, both by Ryan Holiday. Those things, the books are more, I guess, kind of professional and self-development, but they go across the spectrum of an athlete as well. Because Extreme Ownership, like yeah, you cramped out and had a terrible run. Well, guess what? It's your fault, right? Instead of blaming someone else, if you put that internally and how can I fix it and how can I own this situation, I think it goes a long ways of everywhere in life.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, being able to own it and fix it is a
Mhm.
big key to that. 3 questions left for you. One is a 2-part question.
Okay.
If you dislike blank, then being an endurance athlete or bike fitter is not for you. So this kind of came from our athletic trainer, and I asked her this question, and I said, if you don't like being an athletic trainer, what, or if you don't like what, being an athletic trainer is not for you. And she said, if you don't like feet, so taping feet all day.
I thought of that one too, because I have to get down at, because that was one of the things, the answers that I was thinking, because you do have to get all up down on feet. If you don't like touching people, because like my pre-screening, like we're touching everything,
Right.
and kind of talking through stuff. So being able, if you don't like getting really personal with someone and getting very intimate in conversation with them, and asking really awkward questions, then it is not for you. Because when someone sits on a seat and it doesn't feel good, I need you to explain to me why and how. And I get my little pelvis out and we talk about the points, you know? So
Right.
you need to be able to have awkward conversations. And if that's hard for you, probably not a good place for you.
Yeah. So piggyback off that, if you do like blank, then this is the right career path for you.
If you like helping people in their athletic journeys and changing their lives, and it's changing their lives in a healthy way, and you get to see it like firsthand and pretty much instantly and seeing it. I've had some people come in here that have lost, they're on their weight loss journey and it's been hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and it's so cool to see that. So if you enjoy seeing people change their lives for the healthy future, then it's 100% something you should explore.
Absolutely. That's pretty good. Last one I have is, do you have a mantra or quote that you live by?
I do, and it's going to be like a PG-13 situation, and I know this is going out to high school kids, so I think they'll understand it because they say probably way worse things than me, but don't be a dick. And it's really that simple. Just love more. Just love more. It's really, truly that simple in life. And it goes with yourself or your athletes that you're working with. If you truly love the athletes or the patients that you have, like, you're going to spend the time and money and effort to learn more and become better at your craft. And just everyday life's just going to be better if you just love more and don't be a jerk.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, just in life in general.
100%. I think the last 2 years have proven that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, our time with us spent today talking about training and endurance bike fits. Loved every minute of it. Thank you so much for coming on today and spending your time with us.
Hey, I need another pen, so
Yep.
come see me.
OP coming down.